Most people's experience with money is that money is scarce. And in today's monetary system, it is scarce.
These cultural lies on which our relationship with money rests and is rooted is really governed almost completely by the most insidious and tragic lie, which I believe is the lie of scarcity.
Even the Federal Reserve publications claim that what gives money its value is its scarcity. And this is false. It's not the scarcity that gives money its value. When we're talking about credit money, what gives it value is its ability to requisition whatever you want or need from the marketplace.
We actually swim in a set of unexamined, unconscious beliefs. And we look out into the world and we just fear that there's not enough to go around without any evidence, really. And then we make that true.
The domination model artificially creates scarcity, and that scarcity is one of the ways that the system actually maintains itself. Not only material scarcity, emotional and yes, spiritual scarcity.
I mean, what does it mean to have enough money? I mean, I guess you always want a little more.
There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough sleep. So it's a constant battle with there's not enough. We don't have enough. It's not enough. I'm not enough. And that is a mindset. It's an unconscious, unexamined mindset that creates distorted behaviors that are inconsistent with who we are.
The same thing that keeps a rich person from giving is the same thing that keeps a poor person from making. It's that conditioned way of thinking and seeing that we have to really begin to address. Those who consider themselves poor in this country are not poor. I think it's this scarcity mentality. I think it's a belief system that we all carry.
And that there's not enough belief system has a second part to it. There's not enough to go around, and someone somewhere is going to be left out. And that inevitable fear or certainty that there's not enough to go around and someone somewhere is going to be left out is actually at the base of our political understanding of the world, our systems of governance, our educational system. It's even at the heart of religion.
Of course there are scarcities that happen naturally. There's a disaster, there's a flood, all kinds of things can happen. But here you have a system that artificially creates scarcity so that then you get people who really are fighting for the spoils, and since there's so much control from up on top, it is a way of maintaining the disunity and the confusion of those on bottom.
What it is, it's emasculated men. And what do men do when they're emasculated? They compensate with hypermasculinity. When you leave, particularly men, with no options, they get violent and they get destructive. I don't care where you're talking about. Go to Russia. Where do you think the Russian gangs are? Go to Northern Ireland. Go anywhere in the world. These devastating dynamics are engineered.
So our experience of money as being scarce is an artifact of the money system. In a properly run monetary system, there will be no scarcity of money.
There's not enough to go around and someone somewhere is always going to be left out gives us this very difficult and unfortunate permission to leave people out. Because if someone's always going to be left out, then it's your job and my job to accumulate more than we possibly could ever use or need to distance ourselves from ever being one of those poor people who gets left out.
At the point of view of the corporation, getting more and more and more, that is driven in part by greed, in part by the dynamic of trying to get profits, capitalism, but it's also driven by fear. Because if you don't do it, if you can't expand faster than the next corporation, they will get research money, and they will get marketing money, and they will beat you and may drive you out of the game.
you're not quite as efficient in this plant as you ought to be by our calculations. This is the banker speaking. And so therefore, we're going to either raise the cost of your credit and drive you to do bad things to your workers or to your community or to the environment in order to boost that return and boost your stock price. And we will lend to you under those terms only.
The nice way of saying it is nice guys finish last. If you're callous to the effects on others, you have a potential to rise. The odds are that you can compete your way up. If you care and are socially concerned about others, you're at a tremendous disadvantage. So I think the competitive dynamic that we have does sort of weed out a set of people for success. But I would say that what it weeds out for success is not competence, not creativity, not intelligence, but callousness far more often.
Competition does have its place in urging us to our highest level of performance and fulfillment. But health is dependent on cooperation. We don't have the liver competing with the heart for blood and for nutrients. There is this inherent cooperation that leads to the health of the entire entity.
Ecosystems are based much more on cooperation than they are on competition. We tend to deify cutthroat competition. And there is some competition in nature, but there's much more cooperation.
Species move from competition to cooperation because they discover the economic value of cooperating. It is cheaper, more efficient.
We have 8 billion people on the planet. There's 1 billion of those that are happy to work but can't. There are no jobs for them.
Some would argue that these people are unemployed because they lack skills or because they don't want to work. And that may be true in a few cases, but in the vast majority, that's not the reason why they're impoverished. The reason why they're impoverished is because you have this scarcity of money.
If you have an economy which is generating only a limited number of good jobs, are you surprised that parents feel it's really important to teach their kids how to compete on every level? They want their kids to get those jobs. You know, another kind of response would be to get together and say, hey, wait a second, there's a problem with the structure here. But, you know, we have a very individualistic response to the problem.
If you, say, were in such conditions of duress, that you just couldn't survive except by being a slave, you might sign a contract that says, okay, I'll be your slave. That's by your own free will. I mean, are we going to take that seriously? Under some pathological assumptions, I suppose.
We live in an economy which takes 80% of each new generation and educates that 80% to obey orders and to endure boredom, and stifles their creativity, and stifles their capacities, and curtails them. They are systematically crushed by a system which does what? Which fills slots. And 80% of the slots need people who just do rote, tedious, repetitive labor, at least at work, and therefore are acclimated to doing that.
I mean, you could say, you know what? This is a terrible job. I don't want to do it. It's a free market. You have total choice to not show up under these terrible conditions. At the same time, if you don't, little problem here, you're not going to eat, and your family isn't going to eat. And that's why people do it.
Yeah, I really hated that job.
I think many of us nowadays feel the way Charlie Chaplin role modeled long ago, like cogs in wheels, that we're stuck in the machinery of our economy, that we have very little choice. We have to work a 9-to-5 job and watch a little TV and go to bed and do it all over again.
I want to have a more rewarding experience, I guess, with life, and based not just to make money and to say, oh, this year I made 10,000 more than last year.
I think that this whole idea of the middle class in this country is ridiculous. There's no middle class. There's no such thing as that. They're the working poor too, because their whole lifestyle is financed to death. They have the big, beautiful house, the 2 lovely cars. They're putting their kids through college. But if they get fired from their job, all of that stuff is over.
I've always been kind of a cynical person, so I guess to me, doing jobs to just support yourself is just pretty much what life is about.
It's that we do the work we do so often simply for the money. Now, since we're all chasing this money around, it utterly patterns our society.
So hardly realizing it, they come into their purchasing stage and are off on a wild, non-stop ride. It's a happy-go-spending world, reflected in the windows of the suburban shopping centers where they go to buy.
What we're doing is really reinventing the exchange process. We need to mediate exchanges in a different way than we've done before. The debt money system creates money on the basis of interest-bearing debt. It's not debt itself that is at fault. It's the interest component that's attached to the debt. And the interest component does not get created when banks create money on the basis of collateral.
We have to start thinking about money as an information medium, not as a substantial thing. It has been merely an information medium for a couple of hundred years in most respects. But nonetheless, we've stuck ourselves with the idea that there's only so much money. That's the core of its reality concept. That all there is so many trillion dollars or euros or yen, and what we're doing is juggling them. Comes from you, goes to me, goes to him, goes to her. It's to and fro, and we're juggling with a real thing. Therefore, we are always going to have shortages.
In a mutual credit system, each person has an account. And at some times your account may be positive, at other times your account may be negative. Now, it's this allowance for a negative balance that is the fundamental feature of a credit clearing system. This negative balance represents credit that's been extended to you by the rest of the community. I, as a seller, may allocate to you some good or service that you need at the time. I get a credit to my account, you get a debit to your account. Your debit means that you owe something to the community of traders in our credit clearing circle. My credit balance means that the circle owes something to me. There is without a doubt a mega crisis that we're facing in the coming years. And the big elephant in the living room is the money problem. And unfortunately, most people who are active in the sustainability movement and the environmental movement don't understand the nature of this problem. And we're not going to make any significant headway with sustainability or restoration of the environment until we solve the money problem.
Most people, most of us, get up in the morning for things other than just money. We care about things like family and, if you will, betterment, development as whole human beings.
People are not fools forever. And I think we're going to see very strong reaction to this as the pain grows and as the difficulties grow. And that's the time to begin building serious ideas about where we go for the future.
I think we have the opportunity to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this planet. And I think that is the power and possibility of our time.
I think we can use money as a tool, as a servant to what we want to become, rather than be victims.
We don't need to have all this suffering around money. We can free ourselves from it. And the economy can be much healthier and much more of service to all of us.
Time to become aware, time to have the consciousness of our potential. And I think our potential as humans is infinite. Let's not limit ourselves through the medium of exchange. Time to wake up.